Keith, would you take roll, please?
Sure. Mr. Fox?
Here.
Jeff Newsom?
Here.
Mike Mitchell?
Here.
Joe Kalani?
Here.
Sue Grissom? Tom Murphy?
Here.
We not only have a quorum, but a full house.
All right, good deal. Thank you. Item 4, approval of our meeting agenda.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion from Commissioner Grissom, second from Commissioner Mitchell. Any changes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, approval of our October 24, 2019 meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
Support.
We have a motion from Commissioner Voigt, second from Commissioner Grissom. Are there any changes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, item 6, call to the public. There are 2 this evening. If anybody has anything they would like to address with the Planning Commission, now would be one of the 2 times that you have. All right, we'll move on to item 7. Item 7A is site plan application number 19-012, the Heartland Senior Living Plan Development Concept Plan. And what we're going to do here in a moment is we'll turn the floor over to our Planning Director, Troy Langer. We're going to ask the applicant to come up, and they can take turns talking there. And then when we're done with that, we'll have the Planning Commission, the planner, and the applicant interact with a review of a staff letter that we have. So with that, I think we'll turn the floor over to you, Troy.
All right, thank you. Let me start off by showing a zoning map of Heartland Township to kind of explain the area that we're looking at. This is US 23 going north and south here. This is M59 going east and west here. It is on M59, certainly east of 23. It is way out almost towards Pleasant Valley Road. This would be the property in green, and then these 2 parcels in blue. Blue would mean office, and green would be conservation agricultural. So these are the 2 3 properties that are under consideration for tonight's request. The applicant is requesting conceptual review of a planned development for a proposed senior living center. And what I've got is a site plan of the project, this being M59 or Highland Road, and then you would enter into the site. This is the proposed building. There's 146 units that are part of this. Portion of this building is 3 stories, and then the front portion would be single-story building. The plan development process is essentially a 3-step process. The first part of that is conceptual review by both the Planning Commission and the Township Board. No formal decision is made by either the Planning Commission or the Board. Instead, the Planning Commission just gives the applicant feedback or comments about the proposed project, and from there, the applicant makes a decision as to whether this project is worth moving forward with or abandoning. If they elect to move forward with it, the next phase would be preliminary review, which would be a much more detailed site plan of this project, and it would require Planning Commission review and Township Board review, and that site plan would be much more detailed, very specific to the building materials, to the landscaping, the lighting, as well as the entire site with curb and gutter and sidewalks and pathways and so forth. And then the final stage would be the adoption of the actual plan development agreement, and if there were a condominium document, which I don't see in this case, that would also be part of that final phase of the plan development, which also would go both to the Planning Commission and to the Township Board. So this being just the conceptual phase, the plan somewhat depicts the general layout of what they're proposing. We certainly don't have all the details worked out, but this just gives you a general layout of the site, 146 units. I've included in the staff report a item for the Planning Commission to discuss, and that is the use of the property. As I pointed out, the property is zoned, most of it is zoned conservation, agricultural. The other two parcels are zoned office. For the purposes of a planned development, the density of a multifamily apartment complex is based off of the future land use designation. In this case, the future land use designation is office, which does not have any permitted units. So if this is deemed to be a strictly multifamily apartment complex, then this project essentially can't go forward as proposed. If this project is deemed to be some other use different from a traditional multifamily apartment complex, maybe closer to a retirement center or a senior living center, whatever you may call it, then this project could move forward, assuming the comments were favorable. So with that, I'll just leave it open for any questions or comments you might have.
All right, thank you. Now we'd like to invite the applicant, if you'd like to come up. Maybe introduce yourself, tell us of the proposal you have.
Thank you, Chairman Fox, for the opportunity to present the proposal to you and your Planning Commission here this evening. My name is Kevin Brown. I'm a Vice President of Development with Pearl Developers. We're based in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, let me pull that up, I'm sorry. Oops, I'm sorry. Start, I want to start. There you go.
There we go. So I did prepare a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to walk you through that presentation here and explain our proposal to you, who we are, who our partners are for the development as well. And can you all hear me? Okay? Great. So this is just kind of starting out the image. As required as part of the conceptual review submission was a elevation. It had to be in color to express the materiality of the building. So that's what's shown here, and I think most of you have probably seen that in your packets of information already. Okay.
Must be that second page is blank.
Okay.
Very strange. So a bit about our development team. Again, I'm with a company called Pearl. We don't spell it quite like you probably have seen in the past, but I can explain that if need be at some point. Joining us in the development is Lockwood Companies. They are our operator and manager of the development. They're based in Southfield, and they have similar developments, actually very similar to these in Fenton is probably the closest, and in Waterford, Waterford Township. They also have another facility in Burton that's almost identical to this as well. We're working with RDL Architects on the design and the conceptualization and the construction documents. They're based in Shaker Heights, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cleveland. They specialize in senior living, really to all levels of care, not just, let's say, independent living or congregate care, but also assisted living, skilled nursing, memory care. And for the engineering, we're working with the Manick and Smith Group. They're a larger group with many offices. We'll be working out of their Detroit office. So a bit about Pearl. So again, we are based in Cleveland. Our company was founded in 2004 by two Davids. They started the company to develop affordable workforce, senior, market rate housing in Cleveland and many other states. We are a full-service integrated company, as we are a general contractor, developer, and owner, and we asset manage our portfolio as well. We have about 60 properties. I think it is 60 technically now because the last one just closed here recently. But we have properties in 8 different states in the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic. Have a particularly sort of robust portfolio in Central Ohio and in Pennsylvania and Maryland. We do partner with local groups often to bring about the needs that are needed in their community by developing different types of housing, sometimes very specialized housing as well. So I wanted to show you a bit of our experience too, just to give you a flavor of what we've done in the past and kind of let you know what the quality of the housing is that we're proposing. This is Library Court Apartments. This is located in Shaker Heights. It's a development that has a mixture of brick, hardy or cement board siding, and has some different features with it. It's on a very attractive location on a prominent corner in Shaker Heights, right adjacent to the library. The next one is located in southern Ohio. Loveland is a suburb of Cincinnati on sort of the northeast side of Cincinnati. Very attractive community. Again, a smaller development, but gives you sort of the flavor of the type of housing that we've done in the past and what we'd be looking to provide in Heartland. And finally, this is a development in North Carolina, another new construction development as well. Our partner, Lockwood, is a third-generation company. They were really kind of an early home builder after in the post-World War II era, building a lot of tracts and subdivision tracts and housing for people returning from the war. The CEO is actually the grandson of the founder, so they have a long family history. Again, they're based out of Southfield, have been operating in Michigan for a long, long time. They've been in senior housing for a long period of time, for more than 22 years, not just the housing that I showed to you earlier, but other senior housing in Michigan and Ohio. So some examples of their work. This is the Lockwood of Fenton, and probably the closest similar development to Heartland. This is 106 apartments that offers the same amenities that I'll be describing to you in a few minutes that will be offered here at Heartland Senior Living. Another development, Waterford, probably just a little bit further away, not too far away on M59, but is 4 stories, so a bit larger in scale, let's say, than what's being proposed here. A little bit different palette of materials too, but this is 126 apartments. And you can see with both of these developments, they were put together and completed in the early 2000s. So they've been up and operating for more than 15 years each. And you're welcome to go take a look at them, or if you would like to see a tour of a particular property, we could also arrange for that. So just a bit of their experience. This is the staff at Lockwood receiving the Business of the Year Award in Waterford Township. So they have been successful, largely accepted by the township, and been really a good partner in providing senior care in those communities. So what's not shown here, though, is our partnership with Lockwood and Pearl. Currently, we're collaborating on a 130 apartment complex in South Lyon. That facility is very close to completing its financing stage. We're looking to close the financing here in the next few weeks, and we'll be starting construction shortly after the new year. And that's on the south side of South Lyon near 8 Mile. So our proposal, again, some of the questions about what categories this fit into. I guess for now, I'm just showing it as senior independent living with congregate care services, but it's really falls into what I would say more the congregate care facility type, really for independent seniors. So it's really those seniors that are looking to downsize, that maybe not want to have to cook all the time, that don't want to care for a yard, maybe want somebody that does their laundry or does housekeeping for them as well. So we'll be offering those services as part of the amenity package at this proposed development. The site, as was mentioned by the planning director, is 12371 Highland Road. It's an 18-acre, almost an 18-acre site just west of Fenton Road on the north side of M59. What we're proposing is 146 residential units, 71 one-bedroom and 75 two-bedroom. We have completed an initial market evaluation. We have a more robust market study being completed that should be available in the next couple of weeks, but initial demand looks very robust for the area. I mean, there's a need. I think you all are aware that population is aging. There's not a lot of opportunities for seniors outside of single-family homes in the area, and my assumption is many of them are probably leaving the area, seeking alternative forms of housing as the need arises. So we did want to talk a bit about the services that we're proposing as part of the development, because services, in my opinion, are really what sets this apart and really what makes these developments special and work well. So we're really offering what we consider a pretty high level of available services, especially, and I'll get into sort of the rent structure here in a few minutes, but just as the base level. We will have a full-time activities director on site arranging activities for the population, probably on a weekly or even more than weekly basis. We will have a full-time concierge, we're calling it, but essentially someone who's at the front door that can really kind of guide traffic, assist people as they're coming and going, visitors that may be coming to see loved ones. We will offer shuttle bus transportation to the tenant population within like a 5-mile radius for sort of normal shopping and doctor's visits. We will have available emergency response pendants for every person who lives at the development as well. And I'll get into some how that works in a couple of minutes here. And then we'll have sort of what I would call more normal services, beauty salon, activity center, fitness room, and we will have organized activities as well. So in addition to that, we will have what I'm calling sort of base level medical services. Now, this doesn't need licensing. This is not an assisted living facility, and I'm not in the business of providing health care, but we will be providing space and leasing it to a third-party home-based healthcare provider. As part of the lease, they will have to have a 24-hour presence on site, and they will be the first line of defense when those pendants go off. So those emergency response pendants that every tenant will have, if they pull that pendant before it automatically goes to your emergency services, it'll go to the third-party home-based healthcare provider just to prevent sort of, let's say, unnecessary calls. Someone hits it by accident, someone may have fallen, or maybe they just need some help with something in their apartment, that we're not giving those calls directly to your emergency services unnecessarily. Now, the a la carte services, and this is where sort of the extra offerings come in, these are not part of like the base level rent. We will be offering meal service, so we will have a commercial kitchen and a large dining room, actually multiple dining rooms, sort of a normal dining room and then a couple of private and semi-private dining rooms that can be, the private dining room could be rented out for special occasions, birthday parties, and that sort. So we'll be offering meal service, 3 meals a day, available to the members of the community. We will offer housekeeping services and laundry services. So these offerings really allow seniors to live more independently for a longer period of time, really allowing them to age longer in their community without going on to, let's say, higher levels of care. In offering the home-based healthcare services, again, third party, meaning the tenants or the residents can contract for those directly with the provider, not with us. They can get helps with certain ADLs as they may need, and as their needs sort of, let's say, expand over time. But we're not assisted living, so we won't have like a nurse's station on every floor or whatnot. But we're really trying to put something together that responds to what we think the market demand is. And again, this isn't an apartment building, it's not assisted living, it's somewhere in between, but it offers people a different level of service and amenity package. And with that, we'll be also providing we'll be employing a number of people, have a fairly large staff contingent. On the operations side, we'll have 6 full-time equivalent employees. They won't be all there at the same time. We'll have 12 people in the services side approximately, with meal service, laundry service, and others. And with the third parties, again, the healthcare provider, but also the beauty salon would be a third party. We're estimating somewhere between 6 to 8 employees there as well. And that's based upon experience at the other Lockwood facilities and what we're planning in South Lyon. So the proposed development, just to give you a few more pieces of information and to recap here a bit, it's 146 apartments is what we're proposing. It's comprised, again, of 71 one-bedroom, 75 two-bedroom units, and these are full apartments, full bath, full kitchen. One-bedrooms are about 700 square feet, two bedrooms are just over 900 square feet. We're looking to position this in the market at a place that's going to be very attractive, we hope, and we will be offering 60 of the apartments renting from between 800 to 1,000 in the thousands for that, and that's without services. That's the rent for occupying and living in the apartment. We will be offering 86 apartments, let's say, with the full package inclusive of the services, and that'll range from in the $2,700 level for a one up to $3,400 for a two-bedroom. Now, to qualify for the lower-priced units, that is an income-based test, so the tenants would have to make less than, I got to double-check the numbers, but I think it's $35,000 a year for a two-person household to qualify for those units. Now, this is an income-based test, not an asset-based test, and that's a big distinction. So what that really means is someone could have sold their house, they could have about somewhere between $400,000 to $500,000 in the bank, and again, that's assets, that's not income. So if they're living off a pension, a small pension or SSI, they potentially still qualify for those lower rent units. Now, if things go well and we get good feedback and we move forward with our financing, we are anticipating that we'd be able to start construction in the fall of 2020. This is a pretty major effort. It's going to be about an 18-month construction period, so we'd be looking at occupancy likely in the spring of 2022. Now, I know you know this area, you're from the area, but just to give you a sense of context again, this may be hard to read, but you do have the packets if you want to take a look at those later. I'm sure Mr. Langer can give those to you, the copy of the presentation. But as you know, it's adjacent to your Heartland Heritage Field and the park there and the different ball fields. And to the west is the Trilogy office building. I think it's more dental care and sort of other, maybe it's other medical offices. I'm not entirely sure. But it's about a mile and a half, 2 miles from the new Meijer on your, right on M59. So it's not too far from sort of, let's say, the main intersection and not too far from historic Heartland. And those are good complementary services for seniors. And of course, that would be within the range of our shuttle bus transportation to grocery, pharmacy, banking, and restaurants as well. And again, this is the site plan that was shown to you earlier. And I do want to make sure you're aware that north is to the right on this slide. So again, north was up on the other maps, but it's to the right here. So don't want to go into excruciating detail, but as you can see, we're providing what we think is generous setbacks for the building. You know, it's set well off of M59 with good setbacks from the uses to the east and to the west. We're maintaining most of the sort of natural vegetation on the north side of the site and looking to put the detention basin on the north side of the site so we can take advantage of the natural drainage pattern to, is it Bullard Lake? Mm-hmm. Yep. The commons area, we're calling it up, which is on the left-hand side of the building shown there. I wish I had a laser pointer, but that's a one-story section. We will have some two-story spaces in there to try to give more of a dramatic effect and make it a very attractive sort of area for the tenants to utilize. But the main building, the apartments, is in the rear or to the, right there, the right-hand side of the building, the north side, and that'll be 3 stories as proposed. That will be the apartment section surrounding a not fully enclosed, but in sort of a semi-enclosed courtyard there. We will offer a ring road entirely around the building. Certainly it makes it easier for fire truck and emergency vehicle access, and we have parking dispersed around the building as well as carports around the building. So what we're proposing is 40 carports. They will be located on the sides, sort of would be the east, the west, and the rear, the north side of the building, not in the front facing M59. So we're really trying to maintain what we think is an attractive front to the building as you drive by on M59. So this slide kind of summarizes what I just told you, but we will have a porte cochere drop-off. I think that shows up in the elevation pretty well. So I know this wasn't necessarily required for this presentation, but we wanted to give you a sense of the building materials here too. So while I didn't bring a material board, I think that would be required for the next presentation. I will have that then, but this gives you the images of the materials that we're proposing. So we're looking at a stone veneer that would be a base course around the building, and also if you look at the elevation, it's used for sort of 1-story or 2-story accents around the building as well to kind of break up the mass and give a little more interest. This doesn't show you too much, just it's asphalt shingle roof, but on the right-hand side, I know it's just a color, but we will be using a cement panel in the upper levels of the building in different areas to, again, try to give interest to the elevations. And then finally, we'll be using a cementitious siding as well around the building. And these would be the color palette that we would be suggesting at this point, but we're certainly open to other comments. I did want to throw this slide in there too, just to give you a sense of the carports that we're looking to install. Again, these would be along the sides or the rear of the building, not on the main, in front of the main elevation along M59. This is a sort of prefabbed carport structure. I've seen it, we've used it before. It's, I think, pretty attractive, but it does the job, and it's a pretty sturdy carport. So with that, as stated by the planning director, we're pursuing a plan development approval and designation for the proposed Heartland Senior Living Facility. And I'm looking for your feedback tonight because based upon the comments that you give me tonight and the interaction that we have, as well as the comments I receive at the upcoming township board meeting, we're going to go back and prepare a preliminary review package for submission after the first of the year. So with that, I'm available for any comments or questions. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask him something?
Well, we're going to go through the letter. Did you want?
Right, well, he has a display up there.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Just, can you go back to the site plan, please?
Yes.
I know you don't have a laser, but is there, can you point out again what portion is going to be two-story, what's going to be the three-story?
Yes.
I know you said front and back, but is that, help me understand which part of the building
Sure.
you're talking about.
So I think if you can see the building outline, right, and there's, at the right-hand side is kind of that C shape or section. That's the residential portion. That's going to be being proposed as three-story.
So the entire C-shape thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Everything in front of that, between there and M59, is going to be between 1 and story and a half, 2 stories. It's not going to be a true second story. It's a one-story commons area, but we do want to have some, higher volume spaces within that area.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Oh, no problem. Yeah, what we're going to do is we have a staff review letter dated November 27th. So we're just going to use it as an outline. That'll give us the points of discussion so we make sure we can give him feedback on everything that the planning staff is suggesting that we cover this evening. So I was going to start on page 2, which is your packet page number 8. And just real at the bottom there, again, he said it's 146 units, 3 stories. Keith just asked for a better clarification of what that all is, and now I'm on page 3. Any comments on the 3-story in regards to how it looks? He's given us the elevation.
I was pretty much okay with the 3-story to begin with, but I definitely like the fact that it's kind of blended front to back.
Yeah, like
Kind of
stepped in.
camouflage, yeah, camouflage a little bit.
Any other comments on that? You're okay with the height?
Looks nice.
Okay, very good. 159 parking places. He did mention the carports. Any comments on carports?
I have one.
Yeah. Go right ahead.
Two questions. One is exactly where they're going to be and how many. I would prefer that they ended up in the back parking lot, but I don't know how many you're proposing.
Sure.
And then are you going to have any EV plugs in any of them?
That's a good question. We're currently proposing 40, and unfortunately, the plan that was submitted to you with the package didn't have them shown on the site plan.
Right.
They are shown on this plan. They may be a little hard to read, but
Oh,
yeah, okay. If you can see where the cursor is. We have them at the east and the west sides of the building, and also in the rear or the north side of the building.
okay. So they're spread out too. They're not all in one place.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
All right, thanks.
And
Any other comments on those, or you guys okay?
What percentage of your residents are you going to expect to own vehicles?
That's a little hard to say because it varies from location to location. What I can tell you is what the information I have from the other sites that Lockwood, our partner, manages in Fenton, Waterford, and Burden. And they provide at those locations a parking ratio of, I believe it's 0.9 spaces per unit. And what they find is that not all the spaces are normally taken. And I did provide some information in an email to Martha. I can bring that with me next time, or I can send that to Mr. Langer so he could distribute that to you. but we do have counts at the other similar properties. And again, certainly would invite you to take a look at those to, judge for yourself as well.
When is the South Line, you said it was going to start construction when?
After the first of the year.
Oh, okay. And when do you expect to have that completed?
It's, again, about an 18-month construction period, so we're looking to occupy that May, June of 2021.
Is that similar to the one in Fenton?
Yeah, it's similar. It's a few more units. It's 130 units, as the Fenn's 106 units.
And that parking ratio would be sufficient for guests?
In our experience, yes. Yeah. And again, I can provide you specific information in an email or in a letter to show you those parking ratios at the comparable developments.
Okay. Everybody good with parking? All right, down at the bottom, we have a letter B, proposed density, and we're going to have to make a determination here, and this is what Troy was speaking to earlier. Do you want to walk us through your actual staff letter, and your A, B, and C points of?
So if the plan development process were not available, the zoning ordinance effectively creates two categories. One is multifamily housing complex, and two, state-licensed adult care facility or state-licensed nursing care facility. And you would essentially be forced to pick of those, which one do you think this is most closely related to? The plan development process allows you to essentially say, neither of those are good options. We think this is something different, and we think this would be permitted as a congregate care, if you wanted to use that term, and could be treated similarly to maybe an adult care facility or nursing convalescent home, even though it's not state licensed and therefore not subject to density requirements like a multifamily. And you could base that decision based on what they've presented to try to present that argument that it's different than your typical multifamily housing complex, if you so desire.
So at the bottom of packet page number 10, your first item is here, adult foster care. You've given a definition of what adult foster care is.
Yep.
And staff doesn't believe that this is consistent with adult foster care. I would tend to agree with that. Would we all agree?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not talking adult foster care. Over on packet page 11, item 2 is nursing or convalescent home. Again, staff does not believe it is a nursing or convalescent home. I would tend to agree from what is presented here. Would that be the same opinions here?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it would not be that. And the third item you gave us was this, basically looking at it as a straight-up apartment project, a traditional, typical apartment project.
Yep.
And that's where you're asking us to have maybe a little more discussion tonight.
Yeah, because if there is a potential catch here. If you decide this is just like a regular apartment complex, then the PD process is limited on a density, and then each of these would be housing units and would exceed what they're allowed, so.
Do we have anything in our ordinance that fits the definition of what they're proposing?
No, and we've had these discussions as we've looked through some of the uses that our ordinance, much like a lot of zoning ordinances, probably doesn't match the real-world needs of this type of housing that exists. That to lump it into either a nursing home or multifamily, there are other housing options that are being provided for in the private sector that our ordinance hasn't been updated to define and
Well, I recall,
specify.
when we approved the other facility just east of here,
Yeah.
that issue came up. I mean, we had discussion about was that the memory care?
Yeah, that is a state licensed
That's a
facility.
state licensed facility, but even the applicant came in and said, your ordinances are out of
Yeah.
are not consistent with what today's standards and what's being offered. And I think this is another example of in that same kind of thing, where we need to look at our ordinance and address this, especially when we're looking at separate housing, type of housing for, for our community. And so I just want to, I'm just saying that. I think it's,
Yeah.
it's hard to take a look at this and say, well, it fits within this thing, or it fits within here, and it doesn't fit within here, when we don't even have a category that fits.
No, it doesn't, does it? It
No.
doesn't fit anything
And I
we have.
thought the PUD was one that allowed us that flexibility
It does.
to accommodate when we do have a problem like that, so.
Yeah, it does, but you essentially have to make that determination that this is different, that it is not like what we have currently outlined in our ordinance.
Well, and I would think you could easily say this is not a traditional apartment complex, because a traditional apartment complex doesn't offer the list of services that they presented.
Right.
Not too many offer laundry and meals and, and those types of things. So I would think you could easily justify that this is not a typical apartment complex.
They'll have full-time 24-hour healthcare staff there. Most typical apartments don't have that.
And I think about the special planning area that we have, and that was designed to have sort of this evolution of types of housing. You have smaller cottages, apartments, larger homes, and then larger homes on larger acreage. And that's kind of the whole concept, was to create this little mini town that, well, mini town is not the right word, but special planning area. And I kind of think this is one of those elements that we're looking at right now.
Yeah,
We need to take a look at.
I would agree. Are we comfortable saying it's not any one of the three, and that the density can be created through the use of a PD then?
I would support that.
I agree with that.
I concur with that.
Yeah, it seems to me like it fits very closely with a nursing or convalescent home because of the on-site care and things like that. But yeah, I don't have a problem working it through the PD agreement or arrangement.
Tom, you okay with that?
I am. I have a general question, though. Kind of looking forward, if a development is approved and over time the demand or the need for that changes and it would be repurposed for a multifamily, for apartments, what would happen then? Kind of a general question. I don't know if that's been poised.
So at that point, we have an army of bulldozers we'd send out. At that point, we would revisit. That would probably be something that would have to come back to the Planning Commission, and we would examine, can we now use this as something different from what it was originally approved for, if that change were drastic enough? For example, if they said, we're just going to open this up as a multifamily apartment, if you're over 18, you qualify, and it's just straight apartment complex. That would probably be a big enough change where we would sit down and talk with the applicant and say, that's not what we approved, assuming this gets approved. And we would talk about what we need to do to make changes if the Planning Commission and the board wanted to make those changes.
Well, the other thing would be all the, normal apartment projects don't have food service facilities. There's a substantial amount of square footage in this plan that's going to be committed to kitchens and dining rooms.
Yeah, but
So it's always going to have something that's different.
yeah, that could be the trend, though. I mean, you're seeing that a lot, and that's a very good question, but think about it in that respect, right? Think about it. If it does change, instead of being a senior living facility into a general population facility, what would be the difference?
Would the PD
rent
go
would
with
go
the new
up.
owner?
Yeah, the PD would go with a new owner or any owner, but it would be subject to, this is how it got approved.
Okay.
Does that make,
Well, so they'd still have to come back for the PD process because the uses has changed.
Well, if your question is related to it becoming a straight apartment,
Yeah.
yes. I don't want to imply that every time he makes a little change in there, that has to come back.
A new owner would come in and say, I want to make it I want to add apartments on the lower level too, get away with the kitchen, and remove the kitchen and the other facilities, and he'd have to come back, even though it was PD, went with the new owner, he'd have to come back for another approval through the process, correct?
Yeah, if that's what he were doing, is saying we're just going to do away with the kitchen and just add some more units, it's still a 62 or an older, I'd probably still have that come back as a modification of the site plan, because that would probably trigger some parking requirements on the outside of the site, which would then need to be approved by the planning commission.
Does that make you feel more comfortable, Tom?
It does. I'm just thinking, what if it came to that? And in general, I don't know if that's a normal thing to consider going forward. So if the PD is available for that and those changes can be made to satisfy the body, then I'm good with that.
Okay. Sue, are you okay?
I'm good.
Okay. I'm at the bottom of packet page 11, public road access. It's discussed, it's coming off of M59. We're over on packet page now, internal. You've got the roadway all the way around, the ring road. Your parking spaces, when you get into designing them, we use 10 by 20 as our space size. There is a note in here. Are you taking out, or is the staff suggesting you take out the expanded shoulder along M59? Because we've been getting applicants to remove that and then replace it with a normal sidewalk. And I think that was part of what we're thinking you're going to be doing.
Yeah. Sorry, should I?
Yep. Either way, the microphone will get you there too.
I believe that was a comment, excuse me, that was made during a preliminary discussion that we would have to remove and replace that sidewalk.
Yeah, it's the sidewalk is right on the curb along M59. I'm not sure it's really a sidewalk, and what we've been doing with the businesses along there is tearing that out and putting a green space and then the sidewalk.
So he's showing, if you see on the top here, there's a
Yeah.
pathway, and he's showing a continuation of that
Okay.
here. But what the chair is talking about is on the shoulder of this is, it was installed a number of years ago to be a pathway right on, almost like the shoulder of the road, if you will, if I'm describing.
It's on top of the curb.
Yeah. That the chair is asking, are you agreeing to remove that?
I guess if we need to remove it, yes. I mean, what's shown in the note is just off to the left of what's shown on the screen. It does say extend 8-foot asphalt
Yeah.
walk. So
Yep. So
Yeah,
it's two things.
two things.
One, install this.
Okay.
And two, remove this.
MDOT will let you do that when you get your permits for your driveway access. They've been allowing the businesses along there.
Okay.
Okay. And when we get to the next phase, we can help you with that on the drawings. But if your engineer will see, there's a substantially wide, we'll call it an 8-foot concrete pad sitting on top of the curb, and we've been asking everybody to get rid of that. MDOT doesn't require that.
Okay.
Once you see the site, you'll understand.
I think I've been out there. I've driven up off on the curb over there a little bit. Yeah, it's I'm just trying to imagine what it looks like and where it's at exactly. But
Yeah.
yes, I mean, we can accommodate what's required to improve the roadway there.
Okay, perfect. Utilities, Troy, you want to comment?
Wait,
Oh,
I
right
just
ahead.
have a comment on the pedestrian circulation, just to consider connections from your development to M59 like a walk. I don't know if ever they could even connect to the park in some way, because it might be nice if you had, to go, there's play equipment out there, just connections, not just internally, but to the outside.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly, well, the park, I'd have to talk with
Yeah,
the
you'd have to
planning
talk
director
on that,
about
but
to
at
see how that
least
may work. But
M59, maybe your other neighbors
Yes.
versus just the road connections.
yeah, certainly pedestrian connection to M59 that's easily
Sure.
accommodated.
Have you contacted the Trillium Center there for
So
any contact with that owner?
we've actually had some difficulty locating the owner. I think they're out of Texas, and so we've been trying to get in contact with a manager there, or looking next to call the tenants to see how we can connect there. Because I think one of the requests was to have a vehicular connection across the parking,
Right.
across property lines to their parking lot.
But-
And
Yeah.
we do have that shown, but we haven't been able to get them
Yeah.
on the phone
I
yet.
think that's going to be a requirement, a second.
But I don't think it's a requirement. I would
Fire
encourage it.
department may request it.
It certainly would be viewed as a community benefit.
Right.
I think we encourage them. Any other comments on any, sorry, I didn't
No,
catch you
no
there
problem.
behind Keith. Troy, utility comment. Water and sewer. Just want to give us where they are. We know they have to work on it, but
Yeah.
what is the,
So I'm going to go to kind of an aerial view here. All right. This property over here, I'll zoom in on it. This property is under development right now for Bella Vita. That is the memory care facility that we just briefly talked about not too long ago. That's under construction, so this aerial does not depict what it currently looks like. It was a former golf driving range. This is where water is being extended. It'll be extended to the easternmost limits of this property. The proposed development you have before you tonight, the applicant has indicated to us they need municipal water. So that needs to be extended all the way to this property. That is a mile or so. What the applicant is, their project is getting somehow wrapped up into the Newberry project, which is over here and on the south side, as well as potential Heartland Glen development. They are having discussions, those property owners are having discussions about extending water and sewer out to their development, which would then pass this applicant's property, and then this applicant could pay their fair share to connect to that water. I don't know exactly where those conversations are at. I'm telling you, that's the general discussion that it's going. The applicant is an interested observer to those conversations, and the applicant is wanting answers themselves to those questions. That's about all I can tell you.
okay, that's fine. It's an update on where it is. Design details? Any comments about any of it? We talked about the three-story. Are you satisfied with the overall appearance, the frontage, the building materials?
Yes.
Comments on that? Open space requirement, you just have to put a calculation on it. I don't think you're going to have any problem meeting anything we could come up with.
So that most of that in the north is all wetland, right? So they're going to need something.
He's going to need something usable, but I'm going to bet he's going to get it up the sides and,
Courtyard and run.
yeah,
on
I
it.
think you're going to have not a problem.
Yeah, and actually, the wetland, it's not completely delineated yet, but it's really just the northwest corner of the site.
Okay.
Landscaping at the next phase, you'll have to have a landscape plan. Sue, do you have anything to add to that at this time?
No.
Okay, anybody else on that? Same with the lighting, I'm now on packet page 13. Recognizable benefits, you'll need to list, as part of a PD, you need to include some recognizable benefits of the project. One, as I mentioned, could be connecting to the office center next door.
Seen some really nice solar-powered carports as well. So it's a great place to put solar panels.
Yeah.
The rest of the building, too. So.
Okay. DPW review, Troy just touched on the water. Engineer, they'll get into their things. Fire department, same thing. You've seen some communication from them probably. I don't know if you have any comments on it, but I'm sure all those consultants are available. Do we have any other comments for him? Questions? Can we send them out of here with comments from everybody in terms of what you think overall? Something you would encourage them to proceed with, or anything in addition?
I think there's going to be demand, and I do like the architectural design of it. I do like the fact that we're spreading the parking around the building instead of all in the front. And there really is no front parking, but there is a big chunk there, but still, it's all off to the side. So I'm spreading it around, it's not one big piece of concrete.
Okay. Sue, do you have anything to add?
I don't know if you saw, I kind of skimmed over, but maybe you can see what one of the units looks like. This is one of the units, so that gives you an idea. This would be a two-bedroom unit.
Okay. Joe, do you have any final comments for him?
No, I agree with the comments that have been made. I think there's a need for this. I mean, just looking at trends and what we need in the township in terms of, I think there's a lot of folks who are at a point like myself, whose parents are getting old. You know, my mother's getting old, looking for a place that they could be close to. You know, so kind of a great idea, really. I like it.
Okay. Jeff, you got anything you want to add?
No, I would say the same. It's an appropriate use, I would say, and the architecture looks pretty good to me, and the density seems like it works. So, yeah, I would say it's something to move forward with.
How about you, Mike?
Appearance-wise, I think, appearance off of M59, this unit is very attractive. I have absolutely no problem with it.
Okay. Tom, you got anything you want to add?
So, no, I don't think I can add.
Last guy can't add much more.
Hasn't already been said. Nope, I think it's a good use of the property, a good-looking building, and good to know that you already have units out there that are somewhat similar, so you have a lot of experience to base that on. So, nope, I think it looks great.
And I would just agree with everything that's been said. I'm supportive of you moving forward.
Very good, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. We are done then. Have a safe trip back to Cleveland.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And now we will move to item 8, which is call to the public. Anybody like to say anything? Come on forward, give us your name and any comments you might have.
Thank you.
Yes.
I've been here before. I'm Josh Stein, together with the Krause family. I'm the owner and operator of Village Manor Retirement on Highland Road, a little bit down the road. I do have a short statement, and I want to thank you guys for the opportunity. First of all, Village Manor has been a part of the Heartland community for over a decade now, and I want to recognize everyone here that gave us that opportunity, and thank you in part for our success. It's been amazing. This past week, when this showed up on the agenda, I've been debating whether or not to come here and speak. Now, I understand that this is a zoning hearing, but one of the issues that zoning, especially when it's a PD, takes into account is the impact on the larger community. Now, I fully recognize that it may appear that I'm only interested here in trying to keep out the competition, or in some way trying to maintain a monopoly of sorts in the area. This is hardly the case. We have competition from facilities in Brighton, Howell, Fenton, Milford, and throughout Livingston County and western Oakland County. And now with Bella Vista, granted higher acuity, but there, imagine overlapping Venn diagrams. We all compete at margins with everyone else. And they are planning to open their doors within months. There's no doubt competition makes everyone better. It provides more options for seniors and their families, and these are good things. Yet any economist will tell you that although competition is generally a positive thing, too many people chasing too small of a market will lead to diminishing returns for everybody. Overbuilding will lead to below average occupancy for everyone. That's bad for our residents, it's bad for the business, and ultimately can lead to the failure of one or all of the businesses. I don't imagine any of you would bother yourselves, but if you look, for example, and I'd be happy to provide all of these things, overall the national average as well as in Michigan, occupancy rates for senior housing have been dropping due to overbuilding. Wall Street Journal had a very good article about 2-3 weeks ago about this in particular. And I could tell you that in having various facilities in Michigan, that is certainly the case in Michigan as well. If you look at C.B. Richard Ellis reports, Marcus and Millichap reports, again, I'd be happy to provide all these. There is no doubt occupancy is dropping due to overbuilding. And yet, I have to say that I have a lot of respect for Lockwood. I know them. I don't know Pearl, so out of Cleveland, but I do know Lockwood, and I have a lot of respect for what they've built in Michigan. They're certainly highly professional, intelligent people, and I'm sure they've done their market studies or they're working on them. And no doubt they somehow feel that Heartland could handle another 146 senior housing units here. So I've tried to convince myself over this past week that they certainly know what they're doing. But then I was reminded of Walmart, right? Walmart is also full of a lot of smart and professional people. I'm sure they did their market studies too. And they came to the conclusion that somehow it would make sense for them to build one of their stores next to a Target, Kroger, and a Meijer. In hindsight, anyone could have told you that this market was just not big enough for all of those. So now we have a failed store, we have lost jobs, and we generally have a largely vacant building on M59 and 23. We all know there is, the fairy tale, the emperor with no clothes. It took basically a child to point out what was clear to everybody. The emperor had no clothes. Once the child said it, though, everyone recognized it. It was obvious to all. I'm going to be the child in the room here. The emperor has no clothes. The market here is simply not big enough to handle us, to handle what Bella Vista is doing, and to handle another 146 units that would be coming online. I don't think it would be good for the community. I don't think it would be good for you guys either, quite frankly. And I want to make sure that I bring that to your attention. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, we will close call to the public, and we'll move to 9, planners report.
Yep, I do have a few things. I have before you you probably have a black and white copy of this. This is Livingston County Department of Planning is having a training session for planning commissioners, and all of you are invited to attend January 29th at the Livingston County Public Safety Building. There may be a fee for you to attend, so if you're interested, please let me know, and I'll make arrangements for you to be able to go. I also have put on your desk the calendar for 2020. We have no meetings scheduled for 2020. The Planning Commission will have to adopt that. I am giving that to you in ahead of time so that at our next meeting, if there's changes or adjustments or you don't like something, you can have adequate time to look at it, and then I would expect at our next meeting you'll see this again, and we can adopt a meeting calendar for the year 2020. I have one other question. It has been somewhat brought to my attention when we were having discussion on the zoning ordinance uses that maybe the Planning Commission should look at bringing back work sessions. And so I wanted to throw that out. Is the Planning Commission interested in having work session meetings? Those would certainly still be available to the public. We would just generally have them in a more casual forum, not so formal as we do here. Let me know if you're, and you can let me know outside of the meeting if you have concerns you don't want to raise here, but let me know your thoughts for having work sessions in the future on a variety of topics that could come up. That's it.
Just one question for you on the meeting calendar. You followed the typical template, which is the second and fourth Thursday for the first 10 months of the year, the first and third Thursday on November and December? Is that pretty much?
Yes, I
In a
have to
nutshell?
admit, I did not do that, but somebody in the department did that, so, yes.
Where does the buck stop? Okay, we will close planners report. Committee reports, comments, anybody? Need a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Support?
Mitchell and Newsom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you and have a good night.
Then you got to take us with. We're going to have that meeting in Florida.
I'm actually flying down with my mom. I want to buy. I'm flying down with her.